The night Isabella Vaughn fired Ryan Carter, she expected him to crumble. Every employee always did. But when the single-father janitor looked her in the eye and whispered, "Please don't let my little girl know I failed," something inside the billionaire's frozen heart shattered for the first time in her life. She didn't know it yet, but that quiet sentence would destroy everything she thought she knew about power, loneliness, and what it meant to actually be alive. If you want to see where this story goes, stay until the end, and hit that like button and comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. The fluorescent lights in the basement maintenance closet of Crosswell Global flickered at 2:47 a.m., casting shadows across Ryan Carter's face as he wrung out a mop for the third time that hour. His hands were raw. His back ached in places he'd stopped thinking about years ago. But he kept moving because stopping meant thinking, and thinking meant remembering. And remembering meant seeing Sarah's face the night the cancer finally won. He couldn't afford to remember. Not tonight, not any night. "Dad?" Ryan turned. Emma was curled up on 2 folded blankets in the corner of the supply closet, her backpack serving as a pillow. Her small voice cut through the hum of the building's ventilation system. "Yeah, baby?" "My chest feels tight again." Ryan's stomach dropped. He crossed the small room in 2 steps and knelt beside her, pressing the back of his hand against her forehead. No fever. That was good. But her breathing was shallow, each inhale catching slightly in her throat. "Where's your inhaler?" Emma pointed to her backpack. Ryan found it, shook it, and helped her take 2 puffs. He counted her breaths while she closed her eyes, waiting for the tightness to ease. "Better?" She nodded, but her fingers still gripped his sleeve. "I'm sorry you have to bring me here," Emma whispered. Ryan's chest constricted harder than any asthma attack ever could. "Don't be sorry. You're the best coworker I've ever had." That pulled a small smile from her. "I don't even do anything. You keep me company. That's everything." It was a lie, and they both knew it. What Emma actually did was make Ryan's impossible life slightly more impossible. He couldn't afford after-school care. He couldn't afford a babysitter. He couldn't even afford the medication she needed without working double shifts, which meant bringing her to work and praying nobody from management ever came down to the basement after midnight. For 2 years, that prayer had been answered. Tonight, it wouldn't be. Ryan's radio crackled at 3:15 a.m. "Carter, top floor, now." He stared at the device like it had just spoken in a foreign language. In 26 months of working at Crosswell Global, Ryan had never been called to the executive floors. Janitors weren't supposed to exist up there. They were supposed to be invisible, working while everyone else slept, erasing evidence of human presence before the sun rose. "Copy," Ryan said into the radio. Emma sat up. "What's wrong?" "Nothing. I just have to go upstairs for a minute." "Can I come?" "No, baby. Stay here. I'll be right back." Emma's face tightened with worry, but she nodded. Ryan kissed her forehead and locked the supply closet door behind him, his heart hammering as he took the service elevator to the 63rd floor. The doors opened onto a world Ryan had only seen in movies. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Manhattan, like the city was a glowing circuit board. The floors were marble. The air smelled like expensive leather and fresh flowers. Everything was smooth, polished, sterile. Ryan felt like he was tracking dirt just by breathing. "Mr. Carter." A woman in a sharp black suit stood waiting. Her expression was neutral, almost bored, but her eyes scanned him like he was a problem to be cataloged and filed away. "Ms. Vaughn wants to see you." Ryan's mouth went dry. Isabella Vaughn, the owner of Crosswell Global, the woman who'd inherited a billion-dollar empire at 26 and turned it into $3 billion by 30. The business journals called her Ruthless. The gossip sites called her untouchable. Employees just called her terrifying. Why? The woman didn't answer. She simply turned and walked down a hallway lined with abstract art that probably cost more than Ryan would earn in his lifetime. He followed because there was no other option. They stopped at a set of double doors. The woman knocked once, then opened them without waiting for a response. "Mr. Carter, Miss Vaughn." Ryan stepped inside. The office was the size of his entire apartment. A glass desk sat near the windows, illuminated by the glow of the city below. Behind it stood Isabella Vaughn. She was younger than Ryan expected. 30, maybe. Tall, with dark hair pulled back so tightly it looked painful. She wore a white blouse and black slacks that probably cost more than his car, if he'd owned a car. But it was her eyes that stopped him. They were sharp, cold, calculating, eyes that had learned to see people as numbers on a spreadsheet. "Mr. Carter," Isabella said. Her voice was smooth, controlled. "Sit. Imatase bekisho betchamam." Ryan sat in the chair across from her desk. He kept his hands folded in his lap to hide the fact that they were shaking. Isabella didn't sit. She stood by the window, silhouetted against the Manhattan skyline like she owned it, which, in a way, she did. "Do you know why you're here?" "No, ma'am." "We'll see iwatiyat." "I've been conducting loyalty tests on employees across all divisions, performance reviews, background checks, observing who serves this company with genuine commitment and who simply collects a paycheck." Ryan's throat tightened. This was it. Someone had seen Emma. Someone had reported him for bringing his daughter to work. He was about to lose the only income keeping them alive. "You've worked here for 2 years," Isabella continued. "Night shift maintenance. Unremarkable performance. No complaints, but no commendations either. Entirely average." Ryan nodded slowly. "Yes, ma'am. Average doesn't build empires, Mr. Carter. Average doesn't drive innovation. Average is dead weight." She turned to face him fully, her expression unreadable. "You're fired." The words landed like a punch to the chest. Ryan's vision tunneled. His ears rang. Somewhere in the back of his mind, he was calculating how many days they could survive on his final paycheck. Rent was due in 11 days. Emma's medication would run out in 6. He had $43 in his checking account. "I see," Ryan said quietly. Isabella's eyes narrowed slightly. "That's all? No defense? No begging?" Ryan had watched enough people get fired in his life to know how this worked. Begging didn't change anything. It just made you look desperate and weak, and it gave people like Isabella Vaughn something to remember when they told the story later at cocktail parties. "No, ma'am. You're not going to plead your case?" "You're not going." "Would it change your decision?" Isabella's jaw tightened. "No." "Then there's no point." For a moment, Isabella just stared at him. Ryan couldn't read her expression. Anger, maybe, or surprise. He didn't care anymore. He just wanted this to be over so he could get back to Emma and figure out how to explain that everything was about to fall apart. Ryan stood. "Thank you for the 2 years. The work kept my daughter fed. That's more than a lot of people gave us." He turned toward the door. "Wait." Ryan stopped but didn't turn around. "Your daughter?" Isabella's voice had changed. Just slightly. A crack in the ice. Ryan's hand tightened on the door frame. He should have kept his mouth shut. He should have just left. But exhaustion and fear made him reckless. "She's 8, Ryan said. "Her name's Emma. She has asthma. Her mother died 3 years ago. I'm all she has. And I just lost the job that paid for her medication. Vishi balm?" He finally turned to look at Isabella. Her face was still unreadable, but something in her posture had shifted. "Please," Ryan said quietly, "please don't let my little girl know I failed." The silence that followed felt like it lasted a century. Isabella's expression didn't change, but her knuckles went white where she gripped the edge of her desk. "Get out," she said. Ryan left. He took the service elevator back down to the basement, his hands shaking so badly he could barely press the button. Emma was still in the supply closet, sitting exactly where he'd left her. "Dad?" Ryan knelt and pulled her into his arms, holding her tight enough that she squeaked in protest. "Dad, what's wrong?" "Nothing, baby. Everything's fine." It wasn't fine. Nothing was fine. But he'd figure something out. He always did. He had to. Folks. Isabella stood alone in her office for 20 minutes after Ryan Carter left. She didn't move, didn't sit, didn't call her assistant to send in the next employee on her list for evaluation. She just stood there, staring at the door he'd walked through, replaying his final words in her mind. "Please don't let my little girl know I failed." Isabella had fired 147 people in her career. She'd watched them cry, scream, threaten lawsuits, beg on their knees. She'd learned to see it as theater, desperation dressed up as emotion. People performing the role of victim because they thought it might change her mind. But Ryan Carter hadn't performed anything. He just asked her not to let his daughter know. Isabella's fingers trembled as she picked up her phone and dialed security. I need the personnel file for Ryan Carter. Night shift maintenance. And I need all security footage from basement level 3 for the past 6 months. Yes, Ms. Vaughn. May I ask what this is regarding? No. She hung up. The files arrived within an hour. Isabella spread them across her desk and started reading. Ryan Michael Carter, age 32. Former Army medic, honorably discharged 4 years ago. Wife deceased, 1 dependent daughter. No criminal record. No debt. No red flags. Entirely unremarkable. Isabella opened the security footage on her laptop and started scrolling through. At first she saw what she expected. Ryan mopping floors, emptying trash, wiping down windows. Invisible work performed by an invisible man. Then she saw the girl. Emma appeared in the footage at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday in March. Ryan was carrying her in one arm while pushing a cleaning cart with the other. The girl was asleep, her head resting on his shoulder, her small body completely limp with trust. Isabella watched Ryan set her down on folded blankets in the supply closet. She watched him tuck a jacket around her like a blanket. She watched him kiss her forehead before returning to work. Over the next few hours, Isabella watched Ryan clean 3 floors while checking on Emma every 20 minutes. She watched him carry the sleeping girl to different corners of the building, always keeping her close, always making sure she was safe. She watched him bring her to work every single night for 6 months. Isabella's chest felt tight. She clicked through more footage. There. Ryan helping Emma with homework at 1 a.m. while sitting on the floor of a storage room. There. Ryan holding Emma's inhaler to her mouth while she struggled to breathe. There. Ryan carrying her through the building in the middle of winter because she'd had a nightmare and couldn't fall back asleep alone. The invisible janitor wasn't invisible at all. He was a father doing the impossible every single night just to keep his daughter alive. Isabella closed the laptop. Her hands were shaking. She thought about her own father, Gerald Vaughn, the man who built Crosswell Global from nothing and taught Isabella that sentiment was weakness and compassion was a liability. The man who told her at 16 that love made you vulnerable and vulnerability got you destroyed. The man who died alone in a hospital room because no one loved him enough to stay. Isabella picked up her phone. Get me Marcus Webb in HR, now. Marcus answered on the second ring. Ms. Vaughn, Ryan Carter, night shift maintenance. I'm reinstating him effective immediately. Promote him to building operations coordinator. Increase his salary to $75,000 annually. Add full medical benefits and childcare assistance. Silence on the other end. Ms. Vaughn, you just fired him 2 hours ago. Ms. I'm unfiring him. Make it happen. With all due respect, this is highly irregular. If you're concerned about a wrongful termination lawsuit, I'm not concerned about a lawsuit. I'm correcting a mistake. But the optics. Marcus, do you enjoy working here? Another silence. Yes, Ms. Vaughn. Then make it happen by morning. Isabella hung up before he could respond. She stood and walked to the window, staring out at the city below. Somewhere down there, Ryan Carter was probably trying to explain to his 8-year-old daughter why they were about to lose everything. Isabella pressed her palm against the cold glass. For the first time in 10 years, she felt something other than ambition. She felt shame. Ryan was packing up the supply closet when his supervisor found him at 6 a.m. Carter, hold up. Ryan turned, Emma asleep in his arms. I'm leaving. I know I'm supposed to work until 7. But you're not fired. Ryan blinked. What? His supervisor, a tired-looking man named Eddie, who'd always treated Ryan decently, held out a folder. HR called me 20 minutes ago. You're being reinstated, promoted actually. Operations coordinator, $75,000 a year plus benefits. It's all in here. Ryan stared at the folder like it might explode. There has to be a mistake. No mistake. Orders came directly from Ms. Vaughn's office. That doesn't make any sense. She fired me. Eddie shrugged. Rich people don't make sense. Just take the job before she changes her mind. Ryan opened the folder with shaking hands. The paperwork was real. The salary was real. The benefits package included medical coverage that would actually pay for Emma's medication without bankrupting them. I don't understand, Ryan whispered. Eddie clapped him on the shoulder. Don't try to, just say thank you and move on. But Ryan couldn't move on, because he'd seen the look in Isabella Vaughn's eyes when she fired him. That wasn't the look of someone who made impulsive decisions. That was the look of someone who'd already decided exactly what she thought of him. So why had she changed her mind? Isabella didn't sleep. She spent the rest of the night reviewing financial reports, approving acquisitions, responding to emails from board members in different time zones. Work had always been her refuge, the one place where everything made sense because success could be measured in numbers and profit margins. But tonight, the numbers felt hollow. At 7 a.m., her assistant knocked. Ms. Vaughn, your car is ready. Cancel it. But you have the investor meeting at 8. Reschedule. And the conference call with Tokyo at 9. Push it to tomorrow. Her assistant hesitated. Are you feeling well? Isabella looked up from her desk. Do I look unwell? No, ma'am. It's just unusual for you to cancel. I need access to building operations. Specifically, I need to know Ryan Carter's new work schedule. Her assistant's eyebrows rose slightly. The maintenance worker you reinstated? Operations coordinator. Yes. May I ask why? No. The assistant nodded and left without another word. Isabella stood and walked to the window again. Somewhere in this building, Ryan Carter was probably starting his first day in a position he didn't understand, wondering why the woman who destroyed his life had suddenly decided to rebuild it. Isabella wondered the same thing, but she knew the answer even if she didn't want to admit it. She'd spent 30 years building walls around herself. Walls made of money, power, control. Walls designed to keep everyone at a distance so they couldn't hurt her the way her father had been hurt, the way her mother had been hurt before she finally left. And then a janitor she'd never noticed had looked her in the eye and asked her not to let his daughter know he'd failed. The walls had cracked, and Isabella Vaughn didn't know how to fix them. Ryan's first day as operations coordinator was a disaster. He showed up at 8 a.m. wearing his only clean shirt and jeans that had a hole in the knee. Emma was with him because school didn't start for another hour, and he still didn't have childcare figured out. The HR director, Marcus Webb, looked at them both with barely concealed horror. Mr. Carter, I wasn't aware you'd be bringing your daughter to orientation. I apologize. Her school doesn't start until 9. I can come back. We'll see. It's fine. Marcus clearly didn't think it was fine. Let's just get through the paperwork quickly. They sat in a conference room while Marcus explained Ryan's new responsibilities. Building operations, staff coordination, vendor management. It all sounded important and complicated and completely beyond Ryan's understanding. I don't have experience with any of this, Ryan said finally. Marcus's smile was tight. Ms. Vaughn is aware. She believes you'll learn on the job. Why would she believe that? I don't question Ms. Vaughn's decisions, Mr. Carter. I suggest you don't either. Emma tugged on Ryan's sleeve. Dad, I need to go to school. Ryan checked his watch. 8:47 a.m. Right, sorry. Can we finish this later? Marcus sighed. Yes. Be back by 10. Ryan grabbed Emma's backpack and they headed for the subway. Emma was quiet the whole way to her school, which meant she was thinking too hard about something. What's wrong? Ryan asked as they waited on the platform. Are we rich now? Ryan almost laughed. No, baby. We're just less poor. But you have a new job. I do. And insurance? Emma was 8 years old and already knew more about insurance than any child should have to. Ryan's chest ached. Yeah, we have insurance now. Emma was quiet for another moment. Then, is this real, or is it going to go away like everything else? Ryan knelt so he was eye level with her. The subway platform was crowded with morning commuters, everyone rushing past them like they were invisible. I don't know, Ryan said honestly. But whatever happens, we'll be okay. We always are. Emma nodded, but she didn't look convinced. Ryan didn't blame her. He wasn't convinced either. Isabella spent the morning in back-to-back meetings, but her mind kept drifting to the security footage she'd watched the night before. The image of Ryan carrying his daughter through the building, working impossible hours just to keep her safe. She'd never had that. Her father had given her money, power, legacy, but he'd never carried her anywhere. He'd never tucked her in. He'd never looked at her the way Ryan looked at Emma, like she was the only thing in the world that mattered. "Ms. Vaughn?" Isabella blinked. The entire boardroom was staring at her. "I'm sorry, could you repeat that?" Jonathan Pierce, the company's CFO, frowned. "I was asking about your decision to promote Ryan Carter. Several board members have expressed concern about elevating an employee with no management experience to such a visible position." Isabella's expression went cold. "My hiring decisions aren't subject to board approval." Of course not. But given the recent media scrutiny around nepotism and favoritism in corporate America, we want to ensure there's no perception of impropriety. Impropriety? Isabella let the word hang in the air. "Are you suggesting I promoted Mr. Carter for personal reasons?" Jonathan shifted uncomfortably. "I'm simply saying optics matter. What matters is that I run this company, not you, not the board. If you have concerns about my leadership, you're welcome to resign." The room went silent. Jonathan cleared his throat. "That won't be necessary." "Good. Then we're done here." Isabella stood and walked out, her heels clicking against the marble floor. Her assistant scrambled to keep up. "Ms. Vaughn, you have—" "Clear my schedule for the rest of the day." "But, all of it." "Well, Isabella took the elevator down to the operations floor. She didn't know what she was doing. She just knew she needed to see him again. To understand why a man she'd fired had somehow cracked open something inside her that she'd spent decades sealing shut. She found Ryan in a small office that looked like it had been hastily assembled that morning. He was sitting at a desk covered in spreadsheets, looking completely overwhelmed. He glanced up when she entered. His eyes widened. "Ms. Vaughn, Ryan stood so quickly he knocked over his coffee. It spilled across the desk, soaking the spreadsheets. He swore under his breath and grabbed napkins, trying to clean up the mess. "I'm sorry. I didn't expect— I wasn't—" He stopped, took a breath. "Can I help you with something?" Isabella stood in the doorway, watching him fumble with coffee-soaked papers. He was nervous, scared, even, of her. "How's your first day?" she asked. Ryan looked at her like she'd asked him to solve a calculus equation. It's good, thank you, for the opportunity." "You don't need to thank me." "Yes, I do. This job is going to change my daughter's life. We'll actually be able to afford her medication without choosing between rent and food. So yes, I absolutely need to thank you." Isabella's throat felt tight. "I read your personnel file. You were an Army medic." "Yes, ma'am." "Why did you leave?" Ryan's jaw tightened. "My wife got sick. I needed to be home. And after she died, I stayed home. For Emma. You gave up your career to raise your daughter." "I didn't give up anything. I chose her." The way he said it, simple, certain, without a trace of regret, made Isabella's chest ache in a way she didn't understand. "Most people would resent that sacrifice," she said. Ryan's eyes met hers. "Then most people don't understand what it means to love someone more than yourself." The silence that followed felt impossibly heavy. Isabella should leave. She should turn around and go back to her office and forget this conversation ever happened. But she couldn't move. "I owe you an apology," she said finally. "I fired you because I assumed you were like everyone else who works here, waiting for the easy path, looking for handouts. I didn't see you at all. You don't owe me anything. You gave me this job. That's more than an apology. It's not enough." Ryan frowned. "What did you mean?" Isabella didn't know what she meant. She just knew that signing a paper and raising his salary wasn't enough to erase the look on his face when she'd fired him. Wasn't enough to undo the fact that she'd been so blind to his struggle that she'd almost destroyed the only stability his daughter had. "I don't know," Isabella admitted. "But I'm going to figure it out." Before Ryan could respond, Isabella's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and her expression hardened. "I have to go. If you need anything, contact my office directly." She left before Ryan could say another word. But as she walked back to the elevator, Isabella realized something that terrified her. For the first time in her entire life, she cared what someone thought of her. Not because Ryan Carter had power or money or influence, but because he'd looked at her with disappointment in his eyes, and it had felt worse than any business failure ever could. Isabella Vaughn had spent 30 years building an empire. She'd never learned how to build a single, honest connection with another human being. And now she didn't know if it was too late to start. Ryan spent 3 weeks learning a job he was convinced he'd be fired from any day. The operations coordinator position turned out to be less about coordination and more about putting out fires that nobody else wanted to deal with. Broken HVAC systems, vendor disputes, scheduling conflicts between maintenance crews who'd been feuding for years. Every problem landed on Ryan's desk with the unspoken expectation that he'd somehow fix it despite having zero training. He worked 12-hour days and still felt like he was drowning. But the paycheck cleared. The insurance kicked in. Emma's inhaler prescription got filled without Ryan having to choose which bill to skip that month. For the first time in 3 years, they ate dinner without Ryan calculating the cost of every bite. It should have felt like winning. Instead, Ryan kept waiting for the other shoe to drop. "You're doing it again," Emma said one evening. They were sitting at their tiny kitchen table, Emma working on math homework while Ryan reviewed work schedules on his laptop. "Doing what?" "Oh, looking worried. You always look worried now." Ryan closed the laptop. "I'm not worried." "Yes, you are. You get this thing." Emma scrunched up her face in an exaggerated frown. "Like you're waiting for something bad to happen." Ryan reached across the table and tugged gently on her ponytail. "Nothing bad is going to happen." "Then why do you look like that?" Because Ryan had learned a long time ago that good things didn't last, that the universe had a way of taking back every gift it gave, that the moment you started to feel safe was the moment everything fell apart. But he couldn't tell his 8-year-old daughter that. "I'm just tired," Ryan said. "New job stuff. It'll get easier." Emma studied him with eyes that were too perceptive for her age. "Do you still have to work at night?" "No, that's done." "Good. I didn't like the basement. It smelled weird." Ryan smiled despite himself. "Yeah, it did." Emma returned to her homework and Ryan reopened his laptop. But he couldn't focus. His mind kept drifting back to Isabella Vaughn. He'd seen her exactly 3 times since their conversation in his office. Each time she'd appeared like some kind of corporate ghost. Silent, watching, gone before Ryan could figure out what to say. It was unsettling, like being observed by someone who was trying to solve a puzzle you didn't know you represented. Ryan didn't understand her. Didn't understand why she'd fired him, then promoted him. Didn't understand why she looked at him like he was something fragile and dangerous at the same time. He didn't trust it, but he needed it. So he kept his head down, did his work, and tried not to think about the fact that his entire life now depended on the whims of a billionaire who'd already proven she could destroy him whenever she wanted. Isabella, meanwhile, was conducting an investigation that would have horrified her board of directors if they'd known about it. She'd started with the security footage, then moved to employee records, then to financial audits of every department Ryan had ever worked in. She told herself she was being thorough, making sure her instinct to promote him had been justified. But the truth was simpler and more complicated. She couldn't stop thinking about him, not in the way her assistant clearly suspected when Isabella asked for Ryan's schedule for the 4th time in 2 weeks. Not in the way the gossip blogs would twist it if they ever found out. It wasn't attraction. It was something stranger. Isabella had spent her entire life surrounded by people who wanted something from her. Money, access, power. Even her own father had only valued her as the heir who would carry on his legacy. But Ryan Carter didn't want anything. He'd accepted the promotion because he needed it to survive, not because he was trying to climb some social ladder. He looked at her with wariness, not worship. He didn't perform, didn't flatter, didn't try to become whatever he thought she wanted. He was just exhausted and honest and doing his best. Isabella didn't know what to do with that. "Ms. Vaughn, you have the quarterly review in 10 minutes. Isabella glanced up from her desk. Her assistant stood in the doorway, looking patient and vaguely concerned. "Cancel it. I've already canceled 3 meetings today. The board is going to start asking questions." "Let them ask." Her assistant sighed, but didn't argue. She'd learned months ago that arguing with Isabella was pointless. Isabella stood and grabbed her coat. "I'm going down to operations." "Again? Do you have a problem with that?" "No, ma'am. It's just unusual." Everything about this was unusual. Isabella visiting lower floors. Isabella canceling board meetings. Isabella spending hours reviewing the personnel files of a single mid-level employee like she was searching for something she couldn't name. Her therapist, the one Isabella had fired 2 years ago for suggesting she had intimacy issues, would have had a field day with this. Isabella took the elevator down to the operations floor and found Ryan's office empty. She checked the break room, the supply closets, the maintenance bay. Finally, she found him in the basement parking garage, arguing with a contractor about water damage repairs. "I don't care what the original estimate said," Ryan was saying. "You can't leave exposed pipes in a parking structure through winter. They'll freeze and burst, and we'll have twice the damage." The contractor, a heavy-set man with a clipboard, shook his head. "That's not in the scope of work. You want weatherproofing. That's an additional 12 grand. Then revise the estimate." "Plus, can't do that without approval from someone higher up the chain." "I'm approving it." "No offense, buddy, but you're not high enough up the chain." Ryan's jaw tightened. "Then who is?" "Building owner, Ms. Vaughn herself, I'd guess." "Fine, I'll get her approval." "Yeah." The contractor smirked. "Good luck with that. I've been doing work for Crosswell Global for 6 years. Never even seen the woman." "You're seeing her now," Isabella said. Both men turned. The contractor's smirk vanished. "Ms. Vaughn, I wasn't..." Isabella ignored him and looked at Ryan. "What's the problem?" Ryan recovered faster than the contractor. "Water damage from a pipe leak on sublevel 2. The repair plan doesn't include weatherproofing the replacement pipes. It should." "Why?" "Because winter's coming. Exposed pipes in an unheated garage will freeze. We'll end up with the same problem in 3 months, except worse." Isabella turned to the contractor. "Is that accurate?" The contractor shifted his weight. "Well, technically yes, but weatherproofing wasn't in the original scope. Add it. Send the revised invoice to my office." "Yes, ma'am. Right away." The contractor practically ran back to his truck. Isabella turned to Ryan. "Anything else?" Ryan stared at her like she'd just sprouted wings. No, that was it. Thank you." "You don't need to thank me for letting you do your job correctly." "Most people wouldn't approve a $12,000 expense based on a 30-second conversation in a parking garage." "Most people aren't me." Ryan's mouth twitched. It wasn't quite a smile, but it was close. "No, they're definitely not." They stood there in the fluorescent-lit garage, surrounded by parked cars and the smell of motor oil, and Isabella realized she had no idea what to say next. She'd come down here on impulse. No plan. No agenda. Just this strange pull towards someone who made her feel off balance in a way that should have been uncomfortable, but somehow wasn't. "Your daughter," Isabella said abruptly. "Emma, how is she?" Ryan's expression shifted, walls going up. "She's fine." "Why?" "Why? What? You mentioned her asthma. I wanted to make sure the new insurance was adequate." "It is. More than adequate." "Good." Silence again. Ryan was watching her carefully, like he was trying to figure out what game she was playing. "Can I ask you something?" Ryan said finally. "Yes." "Why did you really promote me? And don't say it's because you saw potential or whatever HR puts in the memo. I know that's not the reason." Isabella should have deflected, should have given him some corporate non-answer and walked away. Instead, she told the truth. "Because you asked me not to let your daughter know you failed. And I realized I'd spent 30 years firing people without ever once thinking about who they were going home to." Ryan's expression softened. "That's not your job. Thinking about that. Maybe it should be. You'd never get anything done." "Perhaps, but I might actually build something worth keeping." The words hung between them, heavier than Isabella had intended. Ryan broke the silence first. "I should get back. I have 3 vendor calls before 5. "Of course." Ryan started to walk away, then stopped. "Ms. Vaughn, thank you for caring, even if you're not sure why." He left before Isabella could respond. She stood alone in the parking garage, listening to the echo of footsteps fade away, and wondered when she'd lost control of her own carefully ordered life. The answer, she suspected, was the moment she'd looked into Ryan Carter's eyes and seen something she'd never encountered before. Someone who couldn't be bought, manipulated, or impressed. Someone who was exactly who he appeared to be. It terrified her. 2 days later, Emma got sick. Not asthma sick, not inhaler and waited out sick, actually sick. Fever spiking to 103 months. Coughing so hard she couldn't catch her breath. Chest tight in a way that made Ryan's medic training scream danger. He called out of work and spent the day in the ER. They ran tests, talked about pneumonia, mentioned hospitalization if the fever didn't break. Ryan sat in the waiting room with Emma sleeping fitfully against his chest and felt the old familiar terror creep back in. The same terror he'd felt when Sarah got sick. When the doctors started using words like aggressive and stage 4 and months, not years. Well, he couldn't do this again. Couldn't watch someone he loved fade away while he stood there helpless. But Emma wasn't Sarah. Emma was 8 years old with a lung infection, not cancer. The doctors were cautious, not grim. This was fixable. Ryan repeated that to himself until Emma's fever finally broke at 11 p.m. They sent him home with antibiotics and instructions to monitor her closely. Ryan carried Emma to a cab, still no car, that would take months to save for, and got her back to their apartment just after midnight. He was setting her up on the couch with blankets and water when his phone rang. Isabella Vaughn. Ryan stared at the screen. His boss had never called him before, had never called anyone below executive level, as far as Ryan knew. He answered, "Hello? Mr. Carter, I'm calling because you missed work today without notification." Ryan's stomach dropped. "I'm sorry, my daughter was sick. I meant to call HR, but things got chaotic." "Is she all right?" The question caught Ryan off guard. "What? Your daughter, Emma, is she all right?" "She will be. Pneumonia." They gave her antibiotics. Silence on the other end. Then, "Where are you now?" "Home. We just got back from the hospital. Do you have someone to help? Family, friends?" Ryan almost laughed. "No, it's just me." More silence. Ryan could hear Isabella breathing on the other end like she was trying to decide something. "I'm sending a nurse," Isabella said finally. "What? No, you don't need to." "A private nurse, someone to monitor Emma tonight so you can sleep. I'll have someone there within the hour. Ms. Vaughn, I appreciate it, but I can't afford." "I'm not asking you to pay for it. Consider it a company benefit." "That's not a company benefit. It is now." Ryan's throat felt tight. "Why are you doing this?" "Because you need help, and I can provide it. That's reason enough." She hung up before Ryan could argue. 45 minutes later, a nurse named Patricia arrived at Ryan's apartment with a medical bag and a kind smile. She checked Emma's vitals, adjusted her pillows, and told Ryan to get some sleep because he looked like he was about to collapse. Ryan tried to sleep. He really did. But every time he closed his eyes, he saw Sarah in a hospital bed, saw Emma's small body struggling to breathe, saw the future collapsing into the past until he couldn't tell which nightmare was real. At 3 a.m., he gave up and made coffee. Patricia found him in the kitchen, staring at nothing. "She's stable," Patricia said gently. "Fever's staying down. Breathing is easier. She'll be fine." "I know." "Do you?" Ryan looked at her. Patricia had gray hair and warm eyes, and the kind of steady presence that came from decades of watching people fall apart in hospital corridors. "I lost my wife to cancer," Ryan said. "Every time Emma gets sick, He stopped, swallowed. "I can't do that again." "You won't have to. Your daughter has pneumonia, not cancer. Different battles." "Doesn't feel different." "I know, but it is." Patricia poured herself a cup of coffee. "The woman who sent me, Ms. Vaughn, she seems very invested in your well-being." Ryan's laugh was hollow. "She fired me a month ago. And yet here I am. I don't know why she's doing this, any of it. The promotion, the nurse. I don't understand her." Patricia smiled. "Maybe she's trying to figure out the same thing about you." Ryan didn't respond. He just sat there drinking bad coffee in his cramped kitchen while a stranger watched his daughter sleep and his boss played guardian angel from whatever penthouse she called home. Nothing made sense anymore. But Emma was breathing easier. For tonight, that had to be enough. Isabella didn't sleep either. She sat in her home office, a sterile glass and chrome space overlooking Central Park, and waited for updates from Patricia. The nurse called every 2 hours. Fever stable. Breathing improved. Patient resting comfortably. Isabella made notes she'd never look at again and tried to figure out When she'd become the kind of person who sent private nurses to employees' apartments in the middle of the night. Her phone rang at 4 a.m. Isabella answered immediately. "She's much better," Patricia said. "Fever broke completely. I think you can consider the crisis averted." "And Mr. Carter?" "Exhausted, scared, but handling it." "Good. Thank you for the update." "Ms. Vaughn, can I ask you something?" Isabella tensed. "Yes." "Why are you doing this? I've worked for a lot of wealthy families. Most of them wouldn't know their employees' names, let alone send medical care when their children get sick." Isabella was quiet for a long moment. "I don't know. I think you do." "Then you're giving me too much credit." Patricia's laugh was soft. "I don't think I'm giving you enough." She paused. "He's a good man. Ryan. One of the genuinely decent ones. Those are rare. I'm aware. Just thought you should know that whatever you're doing here, it matters to him, even if he doesn't understand it." Patricia hung up. Isabella sat in the dark, watching the city lights blur through the windows, and admitted something she'd been avoiding for weeks. She cared about Ryan Carter. Not as an employee, not as a project, not as some kind of redemption narrative she could tell herself to feel less empty. She cared about him because he'd cracked something open inside her that she'd thought was sealed shut forever. Because he looked at his daughter the way Isabella had always wished someone would look at her. Because he was decent and honest and good in a way that made Isabella painfully aware of how cold she'd let herself become. And Emma, this 8-year-old girl Isabella had never met, had somehow become real to her. Not just a name in a file, not just leverage in some corporate chess game. A child who was sick and scared and fighting to breathe while her father fell apart in a kitchen 3 miles away. Isabella picked up her phone. "Ms. Vaughn?" Her assistant sounded groggy. "It's 4 in the morning. I need the company pediatrician on call for Emma Carter, daughter of Ryan Carter, operations coordinator. Any medical needs, anytime, no insurance paperwork required. It goes directly to my office." "That's highly unusual." "Make it happen." "Of course." "Anything else?" Isabella almost said no. Almost hung up and went back to pretending she was still the ruthless billionaire who'd built walls so high nobody could climb them. Instead, she said, "Send flowers to their apartment. Something cheerful, child-appropriate. Include a note that says, 'Get well soon, Emma,' from everyone at Crosswell." Her assistant was silent for a moment. "Ms. Vaughn, are you feeling all right?" "Just do it." Isabella hung up and returned to the window. Somewhere in the city below, Ryan Carter was probably still sitting in his kitchen, drinking coffee and trying to hold himself together. Isabella wished she knew how to tell him he didn't have to do it alone anymore. But she'd spent 30 years not knowing how to connect with people. She wasn't sure she could learn now, even for someone who made her want to try. Emma recovered over the next 3 days. The antibiotics worked. The fever stayed gone. Her breathing returned to normal, though she tired easily and slept more than usual. Ryan stayed home with her, working remotely as much as he could and ignoring the guilt that gnawed at him every time he missed a meeting or delayed a project. On the 4th day, a delivery arrived. Flowers. Not a small arrangement. A massive, colorful explosion of daisies and sunflowers and bright purple things Ryan couldn't name. The card said exactly what Isabella's assistant had written. Emma's eyes went wide. "These are for me?" "Apparently. From everyone at your work?" "But..." Ryan read the card again. He recognized the handwriting. He'd seen it on the promotion paperwork. This wasn't from everyone at Crosswell. This was from Isabella. "Yeah, baby, from everyone." Emma buried her face in the flowers and breathed in deeply, then immediately coughed. "Careful," Ryan said. "Your lungs are still healing." "They're so pretty." Emma looked up at him. "Your boss must really like you." Ryan's chest tightened. "I don't think that's it." "Then why would she send flowers?" "I don't know." But he was starting to suspect, and it scared him more than he wanted to admit. Because Isabella Vaughn wasn't just a billionaire who'd promoted him out of guilt. She was becoming something more complicated, someone who called to check on Emma. Someone who sent nurses and flowers and looked at Ryan like she was trying to solve an equation that kept changing. Ryan didn't know how to handle that. He'd loved one woman in his life. Sarah. They'd met in high school, married young, built a life that was small and happy and enough. When she died, Ryan had locked that part of himself away, thrown away the key. Decided that loving someone that much, needing someone that much, only led to the kind of pain that broke you from the inside out. He wasn't going to do that again. Especially not with a woman who lived in a completely different world, who could destroy his life with a phone call, who probably saw him as some kind of charity project she'd lose interest in the moment something more important caught her attention. Ryan looked at the flowers and felt something close to panic. This had to stop, whatever this was, before it became something neither of them could take back. Isabella appeared at his office door the day Ryan returned to work. "Mr. Carter, do you have a moment?" Ryan looked up from the vendor contracts he'd been reviewing. Isabella stood in the doorway wearing a charcoal suit that probably cost more than his monthly rent. Her expression was unreadable. "Of course. Come in." Isabella closed the door behind her. She didn't sit, just stood there, arms crossed, looking uncomfortable in a way Ryan had never seen before. "How's Emma?" Isabella asked. "Better. Almost back to normal." "Good." Silence stretched between them. Ryan waited. "The flowers were inappropriate," Isabella said finally. Ryan blinked. "What?" "I overstepped. Sending a nurse was one thing. That was practical, medical care. But flowers were personal. I shouldn't have done that. Emma loved them. That's not the point." Ryan set down his pen. "Then what is the point?" Isabella's jaw tightened. "The point is, I'm your employer. There are boundaries, professional lines that exist for a reason, and I've been crossing them. You sent my sick daughter flowers. You didn't ask me to run away to Paris. Don't make this a joke. I'm not. I'm trying to understand why you're in my office apologizing for being kind." Isabella's hands clenched at her sides. "Because kindness leads to expectations. Expectations lead to complications, and complications destroy everything." Ryan stood slowly. "Who taught you that?" "Life." "Whose life? Because it sure as hell wasn't mine." Isabella's eyes flashed. "You don't understand what you're talking about. Then explain it to me. Because from where I'm standing, you're inventing problems that don't exist so you don't have to deal with whatever this actually is. This is nothing. That's what I'm trying to tell you. You're a terrible liar." The words hit harder than Ryan intended. Isabella flinched like he'd slapped her. "I'm trying to protect you," she said quietly. "From what?" "From me. From thinking I'm something I'm not. From believing this," she gestured between them, "means something it can't possibly mean." Ryan walked around his desk until he was standing directly in front of her. "What do you think this means?" "Bumkies. I don't know. That's the problem. Maybe it doesn't have to mean anything yet. Maybe it's just two people trying to figure out how to be decent to each other." Isabella shook her head. "It's never that simple." "Why not?" "Because I'm Isabella Vaughn. Everything I touch turns complicated. Everyone who gets close to me gets hurt. That's how this works." That's how you've decided it works. Doesn't make it true." "You don't know me." "Oops." "No. But I'm starting to. And I think you're terrified that someone might actually see you as something other than the Ice Queen billionaire everyone else sees." Isabella's breath caught. For a moment she looked young, vulnerable, lost. Then the walls slammed back up. "This conversation is over," she said. She turned and walked out before Ryan could say another word. Ryan stood in his empty office, staring at the closed door, and realized he'd just made everything infinitely more complicated. But he'd also told the truth. And for better or worse, he didn't know how to take that back. Isabella avoided Ryan for 2 weeks. It wasn't difficult. She had an empire to run, board meetings to dominate, acquisitions to finalize. She buried herself in work the way she always had when emotions threatened to surface. Numbers didn't argue. Contracts didn't ask uncomfortable questions. Profit margins didn't look at her like they could see through 30 years of carefully constructed armor. But at night, alone in her penthouse, Isabella couldn't stop replaying Ryan's words. "You're terrified that someone might actually see you." He was right. She hated that he was right. Her phone buzzed with a text from her assistant. "Board meeting moved to 2 p.m. Jonathan Pierce requested the change. Says it's urgent." Isabella's jaw tightened. Jonathan Pierce, the CFO, who'd questioned her decision to promote Ryan. The man who'd been with Crosswell Global since her father's time and treated Isabella like she was still the 26-year-old who'd inherited a company she didn't deserve. She texted back, "Fine, conference room A." The meeting started badly and got worse. Jonathan arrived with 3 other board members, all men in their 60s who'd made fortunes by being ruthless and calling it business. They sat across from Isabella like judges at a trial. "We need to discuss company direction," Jonathan said without preamble. Isabella leaned back in her chair. "I wasn't aware our direction was in question. It is when you start making decisions based on personal feelings rather than sound business strategy. Be specific." Jonathan slid a folder across the table. Ryan Carter. You promoted an unqualified janitor to a management position. You've been personally involved in his family's medical care. You've created the appearance of favoritism that could open this company to lawsuits. Isabella didn't touch the folder. Mr. Carter is performing his duties adequately. His personal circumstances are irrelevant. Are they? Because our legal team flagged some concerning patterns. Late-night visits to his office, phone calls at odd hours. A private nurse sent to his home at company expense. Isabella's expression went cold. You're having me followed? We're protecting the company. Your father built Crosswell Global by eliminating liabilities. This man is a liability. This man has improved operations efficiency by 12% in 6 weeks. He's identified cost-saving measures that will save us $500,000 this quarter. He's an asset, not a liability. He's a distraction. Jonathan leaned forward. Isabella, I'm going to be blunt. Your father made me promise to look after this company if you ever lost focus. I think you're losing focus. My father is dead. His promises died with him. The company didn't. And right now you're jeopardizing everything he built because you've developed some misguided attachment to a struggling single father. It's inappropriate, it's unprofessional, and it needs to stop. Isabella stood slowly. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Let me be equally blunt, Jonathan. My personal decisions are none of your concern. My business decisions have tripled this company's value in 4 years. If you don't like how I run Crosswell Global, you're welcome to sell your shares and leave. We're not leaving. We're protecting our investment. By questioning my judgment. By reminding you that there are consequences to mixing personal feelings with business. Your father learned that the hard way. I'd hate to see you repeat his mistakes. Isabella's hands clenched at her sides. What mistakes? Jonathan's smile was thin. Ask yourself why your mother left. Then ask yourself if you want to end up as alone as he did. The room went silent. Isabella wanted to scream, wanted to throw Jonathan and his smug certainty out of her building, wanted to prove that she wasn't her father, wasn't destined to die alone in a hospital room surrounded by employees who saw her as a paycheck. Instead, she said, "This meeting is over. Get out." The board members exchanged glances but stood. Jonathan paused at the door. We're not the enemy, Isabella. We're trying to help you see clearly. If you ever question my judgment in front of the board again, you'll be looking for new employment. Do I make myself clear? Jonathan left without answering. Jonathan left. Isabella stood alone in the conference room, her reflection staring back at her from the glass walls. She looked exactly like her father. Same cold eyes, same rigid posture, same expression that said emotions were weakness and connection was liability. She hated it, but she didn't know how to be anything else. Ryan noticed Isabella's absence immediately. No more unexpected visits to his office. No more calls checking on Emma. No more moments where she looked at him like she was trying to solve an impossible equation. He told himself it was for the best. Whatever had been building between them was dangerous and doomed and bound to explode in ways that would hurt everyone involved. He should have been relieved. Instead, he felt hollow. Dad, you're doing it again. Ryan looked up from his laptop. Emma was sitting cross-legged on the couch, watching him with that too perceptive expression she'd inherited from her mother. Doing what? Looking sad. I'm not sad. Yes, you are. You've been sad for 2 weeks, ever since the flowers came. Ryan closed his laptop. The flowers made you happy. That's what matters. But they made you sad. Why? How did you explain adult complications to an 8-year-old? How did you tell your daughter that you'd started to care about someone you had no business caring about? And now you were paying the price for forgetting that people like Isabella Vaughn didn't belong in the same world as people like you? It's complicated, baby. Everything with adults is complicated. You all make things harder than they need to be. Ryan laughed despite himself. Yeah, we do. Emma climbed off the couch and settled next to him, tucking herself under his arm the way she used to when she was smaller. I miss Mom sometimes. Do you? Ryan's chest constricted. Every day. Do you think she'd be mad that we're doing okay without her? What? No. Baby, why would you think that? Emma shrugged. Sometimes I feel bad for being happy, like I'm forgetting her. Ryan pulled Emma closer. Your mom would want you to be happy. She'd want both of us to be happy. That's what people who love you want. Then why don't you let yourself be happy? The question hit harder than it should have. Ryan didn't have an answer. Emma yawned and leaned heavier against him. I like Ms. Vaughn. She seems nice. You've never met her. I know. But she sent me flowers, and she made sure you have a good job. People who do nice things are usually nice people. It's not that simple. Why not? Because she's my boss, and she's... Ryan stopped. She's different from us. Different how? She has money, power. She lives in a completely different world. Emma was quiet for a moment. Then, Mom used to say that everybody lives in the same world. Some people just have bigger houses. Ryan's throat felt tight. Sarah had said that, usually when Emma asked why some kids had new toys while she had hand-me-downs. It had been Sarah's way of teaching their daughter that material things didn't measure worth. Your mom was right. So maybe Ms. Vaughn isn't that different. Maybe she just has a bigger house. Ryan kissed the top of Emma's head. When did you get so smart? I've always been smart. You just don't listen, Chet. Ryan smiled. But Emma's words stayed with him long after she'd fallen asleep. Maybe Isabella wasn't as different as he'd convinced himself. Maybe the walls she'd built weren't as impenetrable as they seemed. Or maybe he was just looking for excuses to justify the way his chest tightened every time he thought about her. The scandal broke on a Thursday. Ryan was in his office reviewing maintenance schedules when his phone exploded with notifications. Text messages, emails, calls from numbers he didn't recognize. He opened Twitter and his stomach dropped. The photo was grainy but unmistakable. Isabella Vaughn carrying a small girl through the emergency room entrance at Mount Sinai. The timestamp showed it was from the night Emma had pneumonia. The caption read, Billionaire Isabella Vaughn's secret family. Sources say the mysterious single father works for Crosswell Global. Full story at link. Ryan's hands shook as he clicked through to the article. It was full of speculation, half-truths, and photos clearly taken by someone who'd been following Isabella. The narrative painted Ryan as a manipulative employee who'd seduced his boss for money and power. Isabella as a lonely billionaire desperate for connection. Emma as the pawn in some twisted corporate romance. None of it was true. All of it was believable enough to destroy them both. Ryan's office door burst open. Marcus from HR stood there, face pale. Mr. Carter, Ms. Vaughn needs to see you immediately. Top floor. Ryan's chest felt like it was caving in. I didn't do this. I didn't talk to any reporters. I know. Just go. Now. Ryan took the elevator up, his mind racing. This was it. Isabella would fire him to save her reputation. He'd lose the job, the insurance, everything. Emma would go back to rationing her inhaler and Ryan would go back to night shifts, and they'd spiral back down into the poverty he'd barely managed to climb out of. The elevator doors opened. Isabella's assistant was waiting. She's in her office. Go straight in. Ryan walked down the hallway on autopilot. He knocked once and entered without waiting. Isabella stood by the windows, her back to the door. She didn't turn when he entered. I'm sorry, Ryan said immediately. I don't know how they got those photos. I never talked to anyone. I would never... I know. Isabella's voice was flat, empty. This isn't your fault. Then whose fault is it? Isabella finally turned. She looked exhausted, raw, like someone who'd been fighting a losing battle for too long. Mine. I was careless. I let myself care about something other than the company, and this is the consequence. Ryan's anger flared. So what? You're going to fire me? Cut ties and pretend none of this happened? That's what the board is demanding. And what do you want? Isabella's expression cracked just for a moment, just long enough for Ryan to see the woman beneath the armor. I want to tell them all to go to hell. I want to sue every gossip rag that printed your daughter's photo without permission. I want to... She stopped, swallowed hard. It doesn't matter what I want. I have responsibilities. To who? The company? The shareholders? What about the people who actually matter? You don't understand. Then explain it to me. Because from where I'm standing, you're about to destroy both our lives because you're too scared to admit you give a damn about someone. Isabella's hands clenched into fists. You think I'm not scared? I'm terrified because everyone I've ever cared about has either left or died or used me for what I could give them. And you, her voice broke. You and Emma are the first people in my entire life who've made me think I could be something other than what my father made me. And if I let myself believe that, if I let myself hope for something real and it falls apart the way everything always does, she didn't finish. She didn't have to. Ryan crossed the room in 3 steps and grabbed her shoulders. Listen to me. I don't want your money. I don't want your power. I don't want anything from you except to figure out what the hell this is between us without you running away every time it gets real. I don't know how to do that. Neither do I. So we'll figure it out together. Immense. Isabella's eyes were bright with unshed tears. The board will destroy you. They're already planning it. They're going to leak stories about you manipulating me, using Emma to gain sympathy. Let them. You don't mean that. Yes, I do, because whatever they throw at me, I've survived worse. And I'm not letting you sacrifice yourself to protect me from a bunch of rich old men who are terrified you might actually be human. They'll make Emma's life hell. The media will. I'll protect Emma. That's my job. Not yours. But I can help. Then help. Stand with me instead of pushing me away. That's all I'm asking. Isabella stared at him. Ryan could see her fighting herself. Could see 30 years of conditioning screaming at her to shut down, cut ties, protect herself the way she'd always protected herself. Then something shifted. Isabella reached up and grabbed Ryan's wrist. Her grip was tight, desperate. If we do this, if we fight them together, there's no going back. Your life will become a circus. Emma will be photographed everywhere. You'll be dragged through the media as the man who corrupted me. I know. You could lose everything. I've already lost everything once. I survived. We'll survive this too. Isabella closed her eyes. A single tear escaped and tracked down her cheek. I don't deserve this, you or Emma. I don't deserve people who give a damn about me. Ryan's voice was gentle. You're probably right, but you're stuck with us anyway. That pulled a broken laugh from her. You're insane. Yeah, apparently. Isabella opened her eyes. They were red, raw, but clear. The board meets tomorrow. They're going to demand I fire you and issue a statement denying any personal relationship. What are you going to tell them? I'm going to tell them that you're the best operations coordinator this company has ever had, that my personal life is none of their business, and that if they don't like it, they can take their concerns directly to hell. Ryan smiled despite everything. That should go over well. I'll probably lose half the board. Good. They sound awful anyway. Isabella's mouth twitched. They are awful. For a moment, they just stood there, close enough that Ryan could feel Isabella trembling, close enough to see every crack in the armor she'd worn for so long. Then Isabella's assistant knocked urgently on the door. Ms. Vaughn, we have a situation. The press is downstairs. They're demanding a statement about the photos. Isabella's jaw tightened. She stepped back from Ryan, and just like that, the armor was back. Not completely, but enough. Tell them I'll make a statement in 1 hour. Great eye sheets. What should I prepare? Isabella looked at Ryan. The truth. We're going to tell them the truth. The assistant's eyes widened. Are you certain that's wise? No, but I'm done lying to protect people who don't deserve protection. The assistant nodded and left. Ryan and Isabella stood in the office that suddenly felt too small and too big at the same time. This is going to get ugly, Isabella said. I know. Emma will be dragged into it. I'll handle it. The board will come after you with everything they have. Let them. Isabella studied him for a long moment. Why are you doing this? Ryan thought about lying, thought about saying it was about the job or the insurance, or some other practical reason that wouldn't expose how much he'd started to care about this damaged, complicated woman who'd crashed into his life and shattered every assumption he'd made about moving forward alone. Instead, he told the truth, because watching you pretend you don't feel anything is worse than dealing with whatever hell they throw at us. Isabella's breath caught. Before she could respond, Ryan's phone rang. Emma's school. He answered immediately. This is Ryan Carter. Mr. Carter, this is Principal Davidson. I'm calling because there are reporters outside the school asking about Emma. We've kept them off campus, but I wanted to inform you of the situation. Ryan's blood ran cold. I'm on my way. He hung up and looked at Isabella. They're at Emma's school. Isabella's expression went lethal. Give me the address. 20 minutes later, Isabella's car pulled up to Emma's elementary school with Ryan in the passenger seat. 3 news vans were parked on the street. Reporters with cameras clustered near the entrance. Ryan started to get out. Isabella grabbed his arm. Let me handle this. They're here for Emma. That's my responsibility. And you'll get swarmed the second you step out of this car. Trust me. Isabella exited the vehicle before Ryan could argue. The reporters immediately turned their cameras on her. Ms. Vaughn, can you comment on the photos? Is it true you're in a relationship with an employee? How long have you been hiding this family? Isabella walked straight through them like they didn't exist. She reached the school entrance where a security guard was blocking the door. I'm here to pick up Emma Carter, Isabella said clearly, her voice carrying. And if any of you follow me inside or photograph that child, I will sue you for harassment and ensure you never work in this city again. The threats would have been empty coming from anyone else. Coming from Isabella Vaughn, they made 3 reporters actually step back. Isabella disappeared inside. She found Emma in the principal's office, sitting small and scared in a chair that was too big for her. The girl looked up when Isabella entered. Her eyes widened. You're Ms. Vaughn. I am. Your father sent me to get you. He's in the car. Why are there cameras outside? Isabella knelt so she was eye level with Emma. This close, she could see Sarah and the girl's features. The same delicate bone structure, the same stubborn chin, because adults are idiots who care about the wrong things. But you don't need to worry about them. I'm going to walk you out of here, and nothing bad is going to happen. Promise? Isabella hesitated. She'd learned young that promises were just pretty lies people told before they disappointed you. But Emma was looking at her with Sarah's eyes and Ryan's trust, and something in Isabella's chest cracked open even further. I promise. She took Emma's hand and led her out of the school. The cameras immediately started flashing. Reporters shouted questions. Isabella kept walking, her body positioned between Emma and the cameras, until they reached the car. She opened the back door and helped Emma inside, then climbed in after her. Ryan immediately pulled Emma into his arms. Are you okay? I'm fine, Miss said. Vaughn protected me, just like she promised. Ryan looked at Isabella over Emma's head. The gratitude in his eyes was so raw it hurt to see. Thank you, he said quietly. Isabella nodded. She couldn't speak. Couldn't process the fact that she'd just promised to protect a child she barely knew. That she'd just used her power and influence not to build something or destroy someone, but to shield an 8-year-old girl from cameras. Her father would have been disgusted. Isabella had never felt more certain of anything in her life. The driver pulled away from the school, reporters still shouting questions that faded into the background. Emma looked between Ryan and Isabella. Are you two in trouble because of me? No, Ryan said immediately. None of this is because of you. Then why are they taking pictures? Isabella spoke before she could stop herself. Because some people think it's news when someone rich spends time with someone who isn't. They're wrong. But they have cameras, so we have to deal with them. That's stupid. Yes, it is. Emma studied Isabella carefully. Dad says you're nice, even though you fired him. Ryan's face flushed. Emma, it's fine. Isabella almost smiled. I did fire him. That wasn't nice. But then you gave him a better job and sent me flowers when I was sick. That was nice. I'm glad you liked them. I did. They made the whole apartment smell good. Emma paused. Are you going to fire Dad again? No. Promise? There was that word again. Promise. Like it meant something. Like Isabella's word could be trusted. Ryan was watching her, waiting to see how she'd answer his daughter. Isabella looked at Emma and decided that maybe, just this once, she could try to be the kind of person who kept promises. I promise I won't fire your dad, no matter what happens. Emma smiled. It was the first time Isabella had seen her smile, and it transformed her whole face. Sarah's smile, bright and trusting and completely unguarded. Good, because he worries about everything. He needs a job that he doesn't have to worry about. Ryan's laugh was strained. Thanks for that, baby. It's true, you worry too much. The car pulled up to Ryan and Emma's apartment building. It was nothing like Isabella's world. No doorman, no marble lobby, just a tired brick building in a neighborhood that had seen better decades. Ryan started to get out. Thank you for the ride, and for everything else. Wait, Isabella surprised herself. Can I come up? Just for a minute? Ryan hesitated. We don't have much. It's not what you're used to. I don't care. Emma grabbed Isabella's hand. Come on, I want to show you my drawings. So Isabella followed Ryan and Emma into the building, up 3 flights of stairs with peeling paint, down a hallway that smelled like cooking oil and old carpet. Ryan unlocked a door and they entered an apartment that was smaller than Isabella's walk-in closet, but it was clean, lived in. There were drawings taped to the refrigerator and photos on the walls and books stacked on every surface. It felt like people actually existed here, like life happened between these walls instead of just business and strategy and carefully maintained images. Emma dragged Isabella to the couch. Wait here. I'll get my drawings. She ran to what must have been her bedroom, leaving Ryan and Isabella standing in the cramped kitchen. I'm sorry, Ryan said. I know it's not. Stop apologizing. Your home is fine. It's a shoebox. It's yours. That makes it more valuable than any penthouse. Ryan's expression softened. You really believe that? I'm starting to. Emma returned with a stack of drawings. She spread them across the coffee table with serious concentration. This one is from school. We had to draw our families. Emma pointed to a picture of 2 stick figures, one tall and one small. That's me and Dad. And this, she pointed to a 3rd figure drawn in purple crayon. This is Mom. She's in the sky, but I drew her anyway because she's still part of our family. Isabella's throat felt tight. It's beautiful. Whoa. And this one I just made. It's the flowers you sent. Emma had drawn a vase full of bright, chaotic blooms that looked nothing like the actual arrangement but somehow captured the joy of it perfectly. I love it, Isabella said, and meant it. Emma beamed. You can have it if you want. Really? Yeah, because you were nice to me, and to Dad. Isabella took the drawing carefully, like it was made of glass. Thank you, Emma. I'll keep this somewhere safe. Emma nodded, satisfied, then she yawned. Ryan checked his watch. It's almost your bedtime, but Ms. Vaughn just got here. Ms. Vaughn has to go. She's very busy. Emma looked at Isabella. Will you come back? The question was simple, honest, the kind of thing children asked because they hadn't yet learned that most promises were lies. Isabella looked at Ryan. He was watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Hope, maybe. Or fear. Or both. Yes, Isabella said. I'll come back. Emma threw her arms around Isabella in an impulsive hug. Isabella froze, completely unprepared. She couldn't remember the last time someone had hugged her. Couldn't remember the last time physical affection had been offered without wanting something in return. Slowly, carefully, Isabella hugged Emma back. When Emma pulled away, she was smiling. Good, because I have more drawings to show you. Ryan walked Isabella to the door a few minutes later after Emma had been convinced to start getting ready for bed. They stood in the narrow hallway, close enough that Isabella could see the exhaustion around Ryan's eyes. She likes you, Ryan said. I like her too. She's remarkable. She is. Ryan paused. Isabella, what you did today at the school? I don't know how to thank you for that. You don't need to thank me. I meant what I told the board. I'm done letting them control who I care about. Ryan's expression shifted. Who you care about? Isabella realized what she'd just admitted. She should take it back, should deflect or make a joke or rebuild the walls that had been crumbling since the moment she'd fired him. Instead, she said, yes, you and Emma. I care about you, both of you, and that terrifies me. But it's true. Ryan was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached out and took her hand. His palm was rough, calloused from years of manual labor. Nothing like the soft, manicured hands of the men Isabella usually dealt with. It felt real. The board meeting tomorrow? Ryan said. Whatever happens, we face it together. Okay? Isabella squeezed his hand. Together. She left before she could do something stupid like kiss him, or break down, or admit just how desperately lonely she'd been for 30 years. But as she rode the elevator down, Emma's drawing clutched in her hand, Isabella realized something fundamental had shifted. She wasn't alone anymore. And for the first time in her life, that didn't feel like weakness. It felt like the first step toward becoming someone worth knowing. The board meeting started at 9 a.m. sharp. Isabella arrived 15 minutes early and found Jonathan Pierce already in the conference room, flanked by 4 other board members who looked like they'd coordinated their expressions of disapproval. Isabella, we need to talk before the others arrive. Isabella set her briefcase down. Then talk. Jonathan stood, hands clasped behind his back like a prosecutor delivering a closing argument. We're prepared to offer you a way out of this situation. A clean exit that protects both you and the company. I'm listening. You issue a statement clarifying that Ryan Carter is simply an employee you were helping during a family emergency. You emphasize that there's no romantic relationship. You donate a significant sum to a children's health charity to show your commitment was purely humanitarian, and you let Mr. Carter go quietly with a generous severance package. Isabella's jaw tightened. You want me to pay Ryan to disappear. We want to contain the damage before it destroys your reputation and tanks our stock price. Our stock price is up 7% this quarter. It won't stay that way when investors start questioning your judgment, when they wonder if the Ice Queen has gone soft. Jonathan leaned forward. Your father built this company on calculated decisions, not emotional impulses. Right now, you're behaving like every other lovesick fool who throws away an empire for a pretty face. Ryan Carter is not a pretty face. He's the most competent hire I've made in 2 years. Then keep him employed. Just keep him at arm's length. No more personal involvement. No more nurses and flowers and playing house with his daughter. Isabella stood slowly. Emma. Her name is Emma. I don't care what her name is. I care that photographing you with her has created a media circus that's making our investors nervous. Then perhaps we need better investors. Jonathan's expression hardened. Isabella, I'm trying to help you. Your father trusted me to guide this company if you ever lost your way. I think you've lost your way. My father trusted you to make him money. That's all. And I've made you more money in 4 years than he made in 20. So spare me the concerned mentor routine. The other board members shifted uncomfortably. One of them, Margaret Chen, spoke up. Isabella, we're not trying to control your personal life. We're trying to protect the company. Surely you can see the difference. What I see is a group of people who are more concerned with appearances than actual performance. Ryan Carter has saved this company $500,000 in 6 weeks. What have any of you done? We've provided oversight and strategic guidance. You've provided nothing but skepticism and resistance to every innovation I've proposed. You're deadweight wearing expensive suits. The room went silent. Jonathan's face flushed red. You're making a mistake your father would never have made. Good. Because my father died alone and miserable with nothing but money to show for 60 years of life. If making his mistakes means ending up like that, I'd rather make my own. Isabella grabbed her briefcase and walked out before anyone could respond. She made it to the elevator before her hands started shaking. Her phone buzzed. Ryan. How did it go? Isabella stared at the message. She should tell him the truth, that she'd just alienated half her board, that she'd chosen him over the strategic alliance that had kept Crosswell Global stable for decades, that she was possibly making the biggest mistake of her career. Instead, she typed, still standing, barely. Ryan's response came immediately. That's all we can ask for. Isabella pocketed her phone and returned to her office. Her assistant was waiting with a stack of messages, most from board members demanding private meetings. Cancel them, Isabella said. All of them? Every single one. And get me legal. I need to review the company bylaws regarding board composition and removal procedures. Her assistant's eyebrows rose. You're planning to remove board members? I'm planning to find out if I can. They want a war, they'll get one. The assistant nodded and left. Isabella sat at her desk and pulled up the financial reports she'd been avoiding. The truth was, the board wasn't entirely wrong. The media circus was affecting investor confidence. 3 pension funds had sent cautious inquiries about company stability. 2 major clients had requested reassurance calls. The smart business move was to distance herself from Ryan, issue a bland statement, let him keep his job, but end whatever personal connection had been forming. It was the same choice her father had made 30 years ago, when Isabella's mother begged him to spend less time at the office and more time with his family. Gerald Vaughn had chosen the company. He'd made the smart business decision, and he died with nobody at his bedside except employees who disappeared the moment his will was read. Isabella's phone rang. Unknown number. She almost ignored it, then reconsidered. If it was press, she might as well know what they were saying. Isabella Vaughn. Ms. Vaughn, this is Detective Sarah Morales with the NYPD Financial Crimes Unit. I need to speak with you about Crosswell Global's accounting practices. Isabella's blood ran cold. I'm sorry, what? What's up? We've received information suggesting financial irregularities within your company. Specifically, money laundering through offshore accounts tied to several of your board members. I'd like to schedule a time to discuss this in detail. I have no knowledge of any financial irregularities. I'm not suggesting you do, but I need your cooperation with our investigation. Can you come to our offices this afternoon? Isabella's mind raced. Money laundering, offshore accounts, board members. This wasn't about Ryan or tabloid photos. This was something else entirely. I'll be there. Send me the address. Isabella hung up and immediately called her personal attorney. Then she called her head of security. Then she did something that surprised even herself. She called Ryan. He answered on the second ring. Isabella? What's wrong? Are you at the office? Yes. Why? Don't leave. Don't talk to anyone from the board. And don't access any company financial systems until I tell you it's safe. What's going on? I don't know yet, but I think someone on my board has been using Crosswell Global to launder money. And I need to figure out who before this entire company implodes. Ryan was quiet for a moment. What do you need me to do? Stay safe. Keep Emma safe. And trust me. I do trust you. The simple certainty in his voice made Isabella's chest tighten. I'll call you when I know more. She hung up and grabbed her coat. Whatever was happening, it was bigger than tabloid photos and personal scandals. Someone had been stealing from her company, and Isabella Vaughn was about to make them regret it. The meeting with Detective Morales lasted 3 hours. By the end of it, Isabella felt like she'd been gutted. The evidence was damning. For the past 18 months, someone had been siphoning money from Crosswell Global's international operations and routing it through shell companies in the Cayman Islands. The amounts were small enough to avoid immediate detection, but large enough to total nearly $8 million. We believe at least 3 of your board members are involved, Detective Morales said. She was in her 40s, sharp-eyed, with the kind of weathered competence that came from years of untangling white-collar crime. Jonathan Pierce, David Hammond, and Robert Chen. Isabella's hands clenched. Margaret Chen's husband. Yes, we think Margaret is likely aware but not directly involved. That's why we're coming to you first. We need access to your internal financial records to build our case. You'll have them, all of them. I want these people destroyed. Detective Morales' expression softened slightly. Ms. Vaughn, I need to ask, did you have any knowledge of these transactions? Absolutely not. And you're certain? Isabella met her eyes. Detective, I've spent 4 years building this company into something I could be proud of. I've made mistakes, but theft has never been one of them. These people were using my father's legacy to line their own pockets. I want them in prison. Detective Morales nodded. We'll need you to continue operating normally while we finalize the investigation. Can you do that? For how long? Goal. A week. Maybe 2. We're coordinating with the SEC and federal prosecutors. Once we move, it'll be fast. Isabella stood. I can give you 2 weeks. After that, I'm calling an emergency board meeting and removing every person involved. Ms. Vaughn, I'd advise against... I'm not asking for advice. I'm telling you what's going to happen. You have 2 weeks to build your case. Then I'm cleaning house. Isabella left before the detective could argue. She made it to her car before the full weight of it hit her. Jonathan Pierce, the man who'd worked with her father for 20 years, who'd been at Gerald Vaughn's funeral delivering a eulogy about loyalty and legacy, who'd looked Isabella in the eye just this morning and accused her of losing focus. He'd been stealing from her the entire time, and he'd used her relationship with Ryan as a distraction. The tabloid photos, the moral outrage about mixing business with personal feelings, all of it had been designed to keep Isabella's attention away from the real crime. They'd underestimated her. It was the last mistake they'd ever make. Isabella drove straight to Ryan's apartment. She didn't call ahead, didn't plan what she was going to say. She just needed to see him, needed to ground herself in something real before she went back to playing the role of composed CEO while building a case against people who'd betrayed everything her father had built. Ryan answered the door in jeans and a faded army t-shirt. His hair was disheveled, like he'd been running his hands through it. Behind him, Isabella could hear Emma singing off-key to some cartoon soundtrack. Isabella, what are you doing here? Can I come in? Ryan stepped aside without hesitation. Emma looked up from where she was coloring at the coffee table. Ms. Vaughn, look, I made you another drawing. She held up a picture of what appeared to be a very tall building with a stick figure in one of the windows. That's you in your office. I made you look happy. Isabella's throat felt tight. Thank you, Emma. Ryan touched her arm gently. Emma, why don't you go play in your room for a bit? I need to talk to Ms. Vaughn. Emma gathered her crayons. Are you in trouble again? No, baby. Everything's fine. Emma left reluctantly, casting curious glances back at them. Once she was gone, Ryan turned to Isabella. Tell me what happened. Isabella sank onto the couch. She felt exhausted, wrung out, like every defense she'd spent 30 years building had finally crumbled completely. My board has been stealing from me millions of dollars. The police are investigating. I have 2 weeks before it all goes public, and Crosswell Global becomes a scandal that makes our tabloid photos look like nothing. Ryan sat beside her. What do you need? Not sympathy, not empty reassurances, just a simple question about what she needed. Isabella almost broke. I don't know. I thought I was building something good, something better than what my father left me. But I was so focused on growth and profit margins that I didn't see what was happening right under my nose. You're not responsible for other people's crimes, aren't I? I hired them. I trusted them. I gave them access to everything. You trusted people your father trusted. That's not a crime. That's you trying to honor his legacy. Isabella laughed bitterly. His legacy is apparently theft and corruption. Maybe the board was right. Maybe I am my father's daughter. Ryan grabbed her shoulders and turned her to face him. Stop. You are nothing like the man they describe. You sent a nurse to my apartment in the middle of the night because my daughter was sick. You stood between Emma and a mob of reporters. You promoted me when you had every reason to fire me and forget I existed. That's not who your father was. That's who you are. I don't know who I am anymore. Yes, you do. You're scared and angry and tired of fighting alone, but you know exactly who you are. You're the woman who chose people over profit, who chose honesty over convenience, who's been trying so hard to be something other than what everyone expects that you've forgotten how strong you actually are. Isabella's hands were shaking. What if I fail? What if the company collapses and everyone loses their jobs and I prove the board right, that caring about people makes you weak? Then you fail with your integrity intact, which is more than most people can say. That's not good enough. I need to win. Then win. But don't do it by becoming what they think you should be. Do it by being exactly who you are. Isabella looked at him, really looked at him. This man who'd lost everything and rebuilt his life from nothing, who'd sacrificed his career to raise his daughter, who looked at Isabella like she was something precious instead of something powerful. I'm falling in love with you, Isabella said. The words escaped before she could stop them. And it terrifies me. Because everyone I've ever loved has either left or died or used me. And I don't know how to do this without destroying both of us. But Ryan's expression softened. You think I'm not terrified? My wife died in my arms. I swore I'd never let anyone that close again. And then you walked into my life and fired me, and somehow became the only person other than Emma who makes me feel like maybe the world isn't completely broken. This is insane. We barely know each other. I know you hate mornings. I know you take your coffee black because you think adding anything to it is a sign of weakness. I know you donated $50,000 to Emma's school after the reporters showed up, even though you thought I wouldn't find out. I know you keep Emma's drawing in your briefcase because I saw it when you came to my office last week. Isabella's breath caught. You saw that? Yeah, and I know you're not the ice queen everyone thinks you are. You're just someone who learned young that showing emotion gets you hurt. But you're showing it now. To me. And that takes more courage than anything you've ever done in a boardroom. Isabella closed her eyes. Tears leaked out despite her best efforts. Ryan pulled her against him. Isabella resisted for half a second, then collapsed into his arms and let herself break. She cried for her father who'd died alone, for her mother who'd left rather than keep fighting for a man who'd chosen money over family, for 30 years of building walls that had kept everyone out and trapped her inside. Ryan just held her, didn't try to fix it, didn't tell her everything would be okay, just held her while she fell apart in a cramped apartment that smelled like cheap coffee and children's shampoo. When Isabella finally pulled back, her face was blotchy and her makeup was ruined and she probably looked completely ridiculous. Ryan brushed tears off her cheek with his thumb. Better? Slightly. Good. Because I need to tell you something. What? I found something. When I was reviewing maintenance records for the building operations report, old work orders from night shifts, stuff that should have been routine, except some of the invoices don't match the actual work completed. Isabella's exhaustion vanished. Show me. Ryan grabbed his laptop from the kitchen counter. He pulled up a spreadsheet that made Isabella's head spin. See these entries? Electrical work on sub-level 3. Except I checked with the maintenance crew. That work was never done. But someone approved payment for $35,000. When? 18 months ago, right when the detective said the money laundering started. Isabella's mind raced. The maintenance records, they're not subject to the same audit scrutiny as major financial transactions. Small amounts, routine expenses. Nobody looks twice. Exactly. I found 11 similar invoices over the past year, all approved by the same person. Who? Ryan turned the laptop so Isabella could see the signature on the approval forms. Jonathan Pierce. Isabella's hands clenched into fists. He used building maintenance as a money laundering front, right under my nose. I have copies of everything, invoices, work orders, approval signatures. If the detective needs evidence, she does. This is exactly what she needs. Isabella looked at Ryan. How long have you known about this? I found it yesterday. I was going to tell you, but then everything exploded with the board meeting and… Ryan stopped. You thought I might be involved, didn't you? What? No. Isabella, I can see it in your face. You thought maybe I was part of it. Isabella's chest tightened. For about 5 seconds, the possibility crossed my mind. Not because I think you're dishonest, but because I've spent 30 years learning that everyone has an angle. Everyone wants something, and I… She stopped. Started again. I'm sorry. I should have trusted you. You barely know me. Why would you trust me? Because you're you. Because you've never lied to me. Because you're sitting here showing me evidence that could send my board to prison instead of using it as leverage to get something for yourself. Ryan smiled slightly. What would I even leverage? I already have the job. You already send nurses and flowers. I'm pretty sure I've maxed out the employee benefits. Despite everything, Isabella laughed. You're an idiot. Yeah, but I'm your idiot. The words hung between them. Your idiot? Like they were something, like this wasn't temporary or transactional or destined to implode. Isabella leaned forward and kissed him. It was messy and imperfect and tasted like tears and coffee. Ryan made a surprise sound but didn't pull away. His hand came up to cup the back of her head, gentle and steady and real. When they finally broke apart, both of them were breathing hard. That was, Ryan started. A mistake, Isabella finished. I was going to say overdue. Isabella's laugh was shaky. Emma's in the next room. She's 8. She thinks kissing is gross. Still, I should go. I need to get this evidence to Detective Morales, and you need to stay as far away from this investigation as possible. Too late. I'm already involved. Ryan, no. You don't get to protect me by pushing me away. We're past that. Isabella wanted to argue, wanted to tell him that being close to her right now was dangerous, that the board would retaliate, that everything was about to get so much worse before it got better. But Ryan was looking at her like he could see straight through every excuse she was about to make. Fine, Isabella said, but if this goes badly, it won't. You don't know that. No, but I know you. And you don't lose. Not when it matters. Isabella stood. I need to make some calls. Start building a strategy for when the investigation goes public. Want help? You're not a lawyer or a PR specialist. No, but I'm good at logistics, and I make excellent coffee. Isabella smiled despite herself. Your coffee is terrible. It's really not. You're just spoiled by whatever $500 espresso machine you have in your office. It was $800, and it was a gift. See? Spoiled, Mus. Isabella grabbed her coat. Emma appeared in the doorway, still clutching her crayons. Are you leaving already? I have work to do, sweetheart, but I'll come back, I promise. Emma ran over and hugged Isabella's legs. Good, because next time I want to show you my rock collection. You collect rocks? Yep. I have 17. They're all different colors. Isabella looked at Ryan. He shrugged. She's very proud of those rocks. Then I can't wait to see them. Isabella extracted herself from Emma's grip and headed for the door. Ryan followed her out into the hallway. Isabella? She turned. Ryan was standing in the doorway, turned. Ryan was backlit by the warm glow of his apartment. He looked tired and worried and completely, devastatingly real. Thank you, Ryan said, for trusting me with this, with all of it. Oh, you're the one who found the evidence. I should be thanking you. Asa. I'm not talking about the evidence. I'm talking about you, the actual you, not the version you show the board or the press. Thank you for letting me see her. Isabella's throat felt tight. Don't thank me yet. This is going to get ugly. I know, but we'll handle it, together. There was that word again. Together. Like it was possible. Like two people from completely different worlds could actually build something that lasted. Isabella nodded and left before she could do something stupid like cry again or kiss him again or admit just how desperately she wanted to believe him. She had 2 weeks to dismantle a criminal conspiracy, save her company, and prove to everyone who'd ever doubted her that caring about people didn't make you weak. It made you dangerous. And Isabella Vaughn was about to become the most dangerous person Jonathan Pierce had ever underestimated. The federal agents arrived at Crosswell Global on a Tuesday morning, exactly 13 days after Isabella's meeting with Detective Morales. Isabella was in her office when it happened. She watched through the glass walls as 3 agents in dark suits stepped off the elevator and headed straight for the executive floor. Behind them came Detective Morales, her expression professionally neutral. Isabella's assistant appeared in the doorway, face pale. Miss Vaughn, there are federal agents. I know. Let them through. Should I call security? No, this is expected. The assistant's eyes widened, but she stepped aside. Detective Morales entered first, followed by 2 FBI agents who looked like they'd been doing this for decades. Ms. Vaughn, this is Agent Torres and Agent Kim. We have warrants to search the offices of Jonathan Pierce, David Hammond, and Robert Chen. We also need to seize their company computers and financial records. Isabella stood. You'll have full cooperation. My head of IT is standing by to provide access to any systems you need. Agent Torres looked surprised. You were expecting us. I've been expecting you for almost 2 weeks. Detective Morales kept me informed of the timeline. And you didn't warn the suspects? Isabella's expression went cold. Those men have been stealing from a company my father spent 40 years building. I want them in prison. Why would I warn them? Agent Kim nodded approvingly. We'll need you to remain available for questioning. I'm not going anywhere. The agents left to execute their warrants. Isabella watched through the glass as they entered Jonathan Pierce's office 3 doors down. She could see Jonathan's face go white, could see him reach for his phone, then think better of it when Agent Torres said something sharp. Within 20 minutes, all 3 board members were being escorted out of the building in handcuffs. Employees lined the hallway, staring. Phones came out. Photos were taken. By lunchtime, it would be all over social media. Isabella didn't care. She pulled out her phone and called an emergency board meeting for that afternoon. Ryan was in his office reviewing supply contracts when his phone exploded with notifications. He opened Twitter and his stomach dropped. The photos were everywhere. Federal agents leading handcuffed executives out of Crosswell Global. Headlines screaming about fraud and money laundering. Isabella's name trending alongside words like corruption and scandal. His phone rang. Isabella. Are you watching the news, Spag? She asked without preamble. Yeah, are you okay? I'm fine. Better than fine, actually. The investigation went exactly as planned. The board members are going to prison, all 3 of them. The evidence was overwhelming. The maintenance records you found sealed the case. Ryan's chest tightened. Isabella, if they know I was the one who found those records, they already know. Your name is in the evidence file, but you're protected. Detective Morales made sure of it. You were conducting routine operations review, found irregularities, and reported them to your supervisor. That's it. Yes. Your board is going to think I was planted to spy on them. My board is going to be whoever I choose to appoint. The old guard is gone. I'm rebuilding from scratch. Ryan heard the steel in her voice. This wasn't the uncertain woman who'd broken down in his apartment 2 weeks ago. This was Isabella Vaughn in full control, dismantling the people who'd betrayed her with surgical precision. What do you need from me? Ryan asked. Nothing. Just keep doing your job. And maybe... She paused. Maybe come to the press conference this afternoon. I'm making a statement at 4. I'd like you there. Isabella, if I'm there, the press is going to make this about us again. About the photos and the speculation. Let them. I'm done hiding. I'm done pretending the only thing that matters is what looks good on paper. You and Emma are the best things that have happened to me in 30 years. I'm not ashamed of that. Ryan's throat felt tight. You sure about this? No, but I'm doing it anyway. Isabella hung up before Ryan could argue. He sat in his office staring at his phone and realized he was about to walk into a media circus that would define the rest of his life. But Isabella had asked him to be there, so he'd be there. The press conference was chaos. Reporters packed the lobby of Crosswell Global, cameras ready, questions already being shouted before Isabella even appeared. Ryan stood off to the side, trying to be invisible. It didn't work. 3 cameras immediately swung toward him. Isabella emerged from the elevator at exactly 4 p.m., flanked by her attorney and head of PR. She looked like she'd been carved from ice, perfectly composed, perfectly controlled, perfectly untouchable. She stepped up to the podium and the room fell silent. Thank you all for coming. I'll make a brief statement, then take limited questions. Isabella's voice was steady, clear, cutting through the chaos like a blade. This morning, federal agents arrested 3 members of Crosswell Global's board of directors on charges of money laundering, embezzlement, and fraud. The investigation uncovered that these individuals had been systematically stealing from this company for 18 months, using shell companies and falsified maintenance records to hide their crimes. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Cameras flashed. I want to be absolutely clear, I had no knowledge of these activities. The moment I became aware of irregularities, I cooperated fully with law enforcement. The evidence against these individuals is overwhelming. They will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. A reporter shouted, Ms. Vaughn, how did you not know this was happening under your nose? Isabella's jaw tightened. Because I trusted people my father trusted. That was a mistake. One I won't repeat. There are rumors that an employee discovered the fraud. Can you confirm that employee is Ryan Carter, the man you've been photographed with? Isabella didn't hesitate. Yes, Ryan Carter, our operations coordinator, discovered financial irregularities during a routine review of building maintenance records. He reported them immediately. His diligence potentially saved this company millions of dollars and exposed a criminal conspiracy. Another reporter. Ms. Vaughn, what about the personal relationship? The photos of you with Mr. Carter and his daughter suggest what? That I'm capable of caring about people? That I helped an employee during a family emergency? That I've developed respect and admiration for a man who's worked harder than anyone in this building? The room went silent. Isabella's voice was sharp, controlled fury. I've spent 4 years running this company according to my father's rules. Make money. Show no weakness. Treat people as assets to be managed, rather than human beings with lives and families and struggles. And where did it get me? Surrounded by criminals who used my father's legacy as cover for theft. She paused. Let that sink in. I'm done with those rules. Starting today, Crosswell Global operates differently. We're implementing comprehensive employee support programs, child care assistance, medical emergency funds, mental health resources, because a company that doesn't take care of its people isn't worth running. A reporter in the back. Ms. Vaughn, are you in a romantic relationship with Ryan Carter? Isabella looked directly at the camera. That's none of your business. But since you asked, yes. I care deeply about Ryan and his daughter Emma. They've reminded me that success without humanity is just expensive loneliness, and I'm done being lonely. The room erupted, questions flying from every direction, cameras flashing like strobes. Questions. Isabella ignored them all. That's all I have to say. Thank you. She stepped away from the podium and walked straight to Ryan. The cameras followed her every step. You okay? Isabella asked quietly. Ryan's heart was hammering. You just told the entire world you care about me. I know. Your stock price is going to tank. Probably. The board. The remaining board members will fall in line or be replaced. I don't particularly care which. Ryan stared at her. You're serious about this? About all of it? Yes. Are you? Ryan thought about Sarah. About the promise he'd made to himself after she died that he'd never let anyone close enough to destroy him again. About Emma, who needed stability more than she needed a father who was half in love with a billionaire he barely understood. Then he thought about Isabella crying in his arms. About Emma's face when Isabella had protected her from reporters. About the way it felt to have someone actually see him instead of just what he could provide. Yeah, Mont, Ryan said. I'm serious. Isabella's expression softened, just for a moment, just enough for Ryan to see the woman beneath the armor. Good, because I'm about to make your life significantly more complicated. It's already pretty complicated. It's about to get worse. The media is going to dig into everything. Your past, Sarah's death, Emma's medical history. They're going to try to paint you as an opportunist who seduced me for money. Let them try. Anyone who knows me knows that's garbage. I know, but it's still going to hurt. Ryan reached out and took her hand. Right there in the lobby, with 50 cameras recording every second. Then we hurt together, like you said. That's how this works. Isabella's fingers tightened around his. I'm not good at this. Relationships, trust, letting people in. I'm probably going to mess it up. I lost my wife to cancer and spent 3 years working night shifts while raising a sick kid alone. I'm not exactly relationship material either. We're a disaster. Yeah, but we're a disaster together. That pulled a real smile from Isabella. Small, genuine, nothing like the polished expressions she wore for board meetings. A reporter shouted, Ms. Vaughn, one more question. Isabella turned without letting go of Ryan's hand. We're done here. Any further questions can go through my PR team. She walked toward the elevator, Ryan beside her. She walked toward Chachikaiku, cameras tracking their every step. As the elevator doors closed, cutting them off from the chaos, Ryan said, That was insane. That was necessary. Your board is going to lose their minds. The ones who aren't in handcuffs already lost their minds when I promoted you. They'll adjust or leave. The elevator rose in silence. Ryan was acutely aware of Isabella's hand still in his, of how natural it felt despite everything being completely unnatural. What happens now? Ryan asked. Now I rebuild. Clean house. Appoint board members who actually care about something other than quarterly profits. I meant with us. Isabella was quiet for a moment. I don't know. I've never done this before. The whole relationship thing. Neither have I, not in a long time. We're going to make mistakes. Probably. Emma might get hurt by the media attention, by people who want to use her to get to me. I'll protect Emma. That's not negotiable. You see, Isabella nodded. I know you will. That's why I trust you. The elevator reached the executive floor. The doors opened to an empty hallway. Isabella had cleared it before the press conference. They stood there, neither one moving to exit. I should get back to work, Ryan said. You should, but I don't want you to. Isabella, come upstairs, to my office, just for a few minutes. I need to not be alone right now. The vulnerability in her voice broke something in Ryan. He followed her down the hallway to her office, that massive space overlooking Manhattan that still felt more like a museum than a place where people actually worked. Isabella closed the door and immediately sagged against it. The armor dropped. She looked exhausted. I keep waiting for someone to tell me I made a mistake, Isabella said. That I should have protected the company instead of burning it down to catch criminals. That I'm destroying my father's legacy. Your father's legacy was already destroyed. By him. By the people he trusted. You're building something new. What if I can't? What if I'm so broken from 30 years of his teaching that I don't know how to build anything healthy? Ryan crossed the room and pulled her into his arms. Isabella resisted for half a second, then collapsed against him. You're not broken, Ryan said. You're learning. There's a difference. I fired you. I made Emma's life a media circus. I just tanked my company's stock by admitting I care about people. You also exposed criminals, implemented employee support programs, and told the world you won't sacrifice human decency for profit margins. That's not broken. That's brave. Isabella pulled back enough to look at him. Emma's drawing, the one she gave me. I hung it in my apartment. Ryan blinked. You did? It's the only thing on my walls that isn't some sterile piece of abstract art my decorator chose. It's crooked, and the colors don't match, and it's perfect. She'll be thrilled. I want to do this right. With you. With her. I don't want to be the billionaire who swoops in and tries to fix everything with money. I want to actually be part of your lives. Then be part of our lives. Come to dinner. Help Emma with homework. Watch terrible cartoons on Saturday mornings. You don't have to fix anything. You just have to show up. Isabella's eyes were bright with unshed tears. What if I'm terrible at it? Then you'll be terrible at it with us. We'll figure it out. Look, I love you. The words came out rushed, almost panicked. I know it's too soon and we barely know each other, and this is probably a disaster waiting to happen. But I love you, and I needed to say it before I lost my nerve. Ryan's heart stuttered. Isabella, you don't have to say it back. I just needed you to know. Ryan cupped her face in his hands. I love you too. Which is terrifying because I swore I'd never do this again. Never let someone matter this much. But you matter. You and your terrible coffee and your ice queen reputation and the way you look at Emma like she's the most important person in the room. Isabella kissed him. It was desperate and messy and tasted like salt from tears neither of them wanted to acknowledge. When they finally broke apart, both of them were breathing hard. My apartment tonight, Ryan said. Dinner with Emma. Nothing fancy. Just us. I'll be there. Bring wine. My beer selection is terrible. Isabella laughed. It was watery and broken and the most genuine sound Ryan had ever heard from her. Deal. 3 months later, Isabella stood in Ryan's apartment kitchen trying to figure out how to make spaghetti without burning it. The water needs to be boiling first, Emma said patiently. She was sitting on the counter, swinging her legs, watching Isabella struggle with basic cooking like it was the most entertaining thing she'd ever seen. It is boiling. Barely. It needs to be really boiling, like bubbles everywhere. Isabella adjusted the heat. How do you know this? You're 8. Dad taught me. We cook together all the time. Of course you do, Salt. Emma grinned. You're really bad at this. I'm aware. It's okay, you're good at other stuff, like business and making Dad smile. Isabella's chest tightened. He smiles a lot, actually. Not like he does with you. It's different. It's like how he used to smile at Mom. The easy way Emma talked about Sarah no longer made Isabella uncomfortable. She'd learned over the past 3 months that Sarah wasn't competition. She was part of Emma's story, part of Ryan's story. And being with them meant accepting that their past had shaped who they were. Ryan appeared in the kitchen doorway. Please tell me you're not letting Emma teach you to cook. She's a better teacher than you. You just threw ingredients at me and said, figure it out. That's how I learned. You learned in the army. Exactly. Character building. Emma giggled. Isabella said a bad word when the sauce splashed on her. Ryan raised an eyebrow. What word? I'm not repeating it, Isabella said quickly. Emma, the water is boiling. What now? Salt, then pasta. Isabella added salt, then carefully lowered the pasta into the pot. It was absurd. She ran a billion-dollar company. She'd negotiated international acquisitions and restructured entire departments. She could absolutely handle spaghetti. The pasta stuck together immediately. You have to stir it, Emma said. Right, stirring. I knew that. Ryan was trying not to laugh. Isabella glared at him. Don't say anything. I wasn't going to say anything. You were thinking it. Asa. Thinking what? That watching you wrestle with pasta is adorable? I'm not adorable. I'm intimidating. You're both, Emma said. Intimidatingly adorable. Isabella pointed the pasta spoon at her. You're grounded. You can't ground me. You're not my mom. The words hung in the air. Emma's eyes went wide like she'd just realized what she said. Isabella felt her chest constrict. They'd been dancing around this for months. What Isabella was to Emma. What their relationship meant. Whether it was okay for Emma to care about someone who wasn't Sarah. I'm sorry, Emma said quietly. I didn't mean, it's okay. Isabella knelt so she was eye level with Emma. You're right. I'm not your mom. I could never replace her. But I'd like to be someone who cares about you. Someone you can count on, if that's okay with you. Emma's eyes filled with tears. Do you promise you won't leave, like Mom did? Your mom didn't want to leave, sweetheart. She was sick. I know, but she still left. And I don't want you to leave too. Isabella looked at Ryan. He was watching them with an expression that was equal parts heartbreak and hope. I promise I'll try my hardest to stay, Isabella said carefully. I can't promise nothing bad will ever happen, but I can promise I'm not going anywhere by choice. You and your dad. You're my family now, and I don't give up on family. Emma threw her arms around Isabella's neck. Isabella hugged her back, careful not to squeeze too hard. The pasta's going to burn, Emma mumbled against Isabella's shoulder. I don't care. Yes, you do. You worked really hard on it. Isabella laughed and pulled back. Okay, fine. We'll save the pasta. She returned to the stove where the spaghetti was, miraculously not burned. Emma talked her through draining it and mixing in the sauce and plating it in a way that didn't look completely pathetic. They ate dinner at the tiny table that was too small for 3 people but somehow fit them perfectly. Emma told stories about school. Ryan complained about a vendor who kept trying to overcharge for cleaning supplies. Isabella talked about the new board member she'd appointed who actually seemed to care about employees as human beings. It was ordinary, unremarkable, nothing like the life Isabella had lived for 30 years. It was perfect. After dinner, Emma insisted on showing Isabella her rock collection. All 23 rocks now, each one carefully labeled with where she'd found it and what made it special. This one's from Central Park. And this one Dad found outside the hospital when I had pneumonia. And this one, Emma held up a small gray pebble. This one's from outside our building the day you came to dinner the first time. I saved it because I wanted to remember. Isabella's throat felt tight. It's beautiful. It's just a rock. It's a memory. That makes it beautiful. Emma carefully returned all the rocks to their box. I'm glad you're here, Isabella. You make everything feel less scary. You make everything feel less empty. Emma hugged her again, quick and impulsive, then ran off to get ready for bed. Isabella stood in Emma's tiny bedroom, barely bigger than Isabella's closet, and felt something shift inside her chest. Some final wall crumbling, some last defense falling away. She'd spent 30 years believing that love was weakness, that caring about people made you vulnerable, that the only thing worth building was money and power and control. She'd been wrong about all of it. Ryan appeared in the doorway. "You okay?" "Yeah, just thinking. About how my father died alone, and how I almost ended up exactly like him." Ryan crossed the room and wrapped his arms around her from behind. "But you didn't. Because you and Emma wouldn't let me. Because you chose differently. We just gave you a reason to." Isabella leaned back against him. "I want to do something, for the company, something that actually matters." "Like what?" "I've been thinking about the employees, the ones like you, working impossible hours for impossible situations because they don't have better options. I want to create a fund, emergency support for employees facing medical crises, housing instability, childcare gaps. Real help, not just token gestures." Ryan was quiet for a moment. "That's going to cost millions. I have millions. I'd rather spend it on people than another yacht I'll never use." "You have a yacht?" "3, actually. I inherited them from my father. I've never been on any of them." Ryan laughed. "Of course you have 3 yachts. I'm selling them. The money's going to the employee fund." "Isabella, you don't have to." "Yes, I do, because Emma was right. I'm not your mom. But I want to be someone who shows up, who does the right thing even when it's expensive and complicated. Your family taught me that. Now, I want to pass it forward." Ryan turned her around to face him. "I love you. You know that?" "You've mentioned it a few times. I'm mentioning it again. Because I need you to understand, you changed my life. You and Emma changed everything." "Wait." "What?" "We didn't change you. We just reminded you that you're allowed to want more than survival." Isabella kissed him. Soft and slow and full of promises neither of them knew if they could keep, but were going to try anyway. When they broke apart, Emma was standing in the hallway in her pajamas, watching them with a satisfied expression. "I knew it," Emma said. "Knew what?" Ryan asked. "That you two were going to get married." Isabella choked on air. "What?" "You're always looking at each other like people do in movies before they get married. It's obvious." Ryan's face was red. "Emma, that's not... We haven't talked about... Do you love Isabella?" "Yes, but..." "And Isabella, do you love Dad?" Isabella's voice was surprisingly steady. "Yes." "And you both love me?" "Of course," they said in unison. Emma shrugged. "Then you should get married. That's how families work." She turned and went back to her room, leaving 2 adults standing in the hallway trying to process what just happened. "She's 8, Ryan said finally. "She doesn't understand." "Do you want to marry me?" Isabella asked. Ryan stared at her. "What?" "Not now, not tomorrow, but eventually. Is that something you want?" Ryan's expression was impossible to read. "Isabella, we've been together for 3 months. I don't care. I've spent 30 years making careful, calculated decisions based on logic and strategy. And where did it get me? Alone in a penthouse surrounded by expensive things that meant nothing. I love you. I love Emma. And if you're asking me whether I want to spend the rest of my life figuring out how to make terrible spaghetti and listen to stories about rocks and wake up next to someone who actually sees me, yes, I want that." Ryan was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "I want that too. But I need you to understand, I'm never going to be comfortable in your world. The galas and charity events and people who judge me for not having the right pedigree. Then we'll skip the galas. Build our own world. One where Emma can collect rocks and you can complain about vendors and I can burn pasta without it being a metaphor for corporate failure." Ryan laughed. "Is that what we're doing? Building our own world?" I think so, if you'll let me. On one condition." "What?" "No more yachts. 3 is absurd." "I'm selling them all." "Good, because I get seasick." Isabella kissed him again. And this time, neither of them pulled away until Emma yelled from her room that she was trying to sleep, And could they please be quieter about being in love? 6 months after that, Isabella stood on the rooftop garden of Croswell Tower during the company's annual charity celebration. The spring air was warm and perfect. Butterflies drifted through the flowers she'd insisted on planting because Emma had mentioned once that she liked butterflies. The event was different this year. Instead of corporate executives in $1,000 suits, the garden was filled with employees from every level of the company: maintenance workers, administrative assistants, junior analysts, people who actually kept Croswell Global running. Ryan stood beside her wearing a suit that Isabella had bought him over his protests. Emma was somewhere in the crowd, probably explaining her rock collection to anyone who would listen. "You did good," Ryan said quietly. "We did good. This was your idea, the whole inclusive celebration thing. You're the one who made it happen." Isabella watched the crowd, watched people who'd spent years being invisible finally being seen, being valued, being treated like they mattered. "My father would hate this," Isabella said. "Yeah, he probably would." "Good." Emma appeared at Isabella's side, slightly out of breath. "There's a photographer here who wants to take pictures of the three of us, for the company newsletter or something. Is that okay?" Isabella looked at Ryan. He shrugged. "Your call." Isabella had spent months avoiding cameras, dodging press, trying to keep her personal life separate from her professional image. She was done with that. "Sure. Let's take the picture." They posed by the rooftop garden's edge, the Manhattan skyline glowing behind them. Emma stood between Isabella and Ryan, holding both their hands. The photographer took a dozen shots, all probably terrible because none of them were good at posing. When it was done, Emma held up a drawing she'd been hiding behind her back. "I made this for you, for both of you." It was the three of them, drawn in Emma's distinctive style. Stick figures holding hands, the skyscraper behind them. Butterflies everywhere. At the bottom, in careful 8-year-old handwriting, "Our family." Isabella's vision blurred. "Emma, it's beautiful." "You don't look sad anymore, Emma said. "In real life, or in my drawings, you look happy." Isabella knelt down and pulled Emma into a hug. "That's because of you, both of you." Ryan joined the hug, wrapping his arms around both of them. They stood there on the rooftop while the charity celebration continued around them. Three people who'd found each other in the wreckage of their separate broken lives and built something neither perfect nor easy, but completely, undeniably real. Later, after the celebration ended and the guests dispersed, Isabella found herself alone on the rooftop with Ryan. Emma had fallen asleep in a chair, worn out from a day of excitement. "I've been thinking," Ryan said. About what Emma said 6 months ago, about marriage." Isabella's heart stuttered. "Oh." Ryan pulled a small box from his pocket. "This isn't some grand romantic gesture. I can't afford the kind of ring you probably deserve. But I can offer you this." He opened the box. Inside was a simple silver band with a small diamond. Nothing extravagant. Nothing that screamed wealth or status. It was perfect. "I'm asking," Ryan said, "not because Emma said we should, not because it makes sense on paper, but because I love you. Because I want to build this weird, messy, complicated life with you. Because you make me believe in things I thought I'd lost." Isabella's hands were shaking. "Yes, you didn't let me finish. I don't need you to finish. The answer is yes." Ryan slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. They stood there in the garden, butterflies drifting around them in the fading light, and Isabella realized something she'd never understood before. Her father had been wrong about everything. Love wasn't weakness. It was the only thing that mattered. Money couldn't buy happiness. But showing up for people, day after day, even when it was hard, that could. And the greatest thing she'd ever built wasn't a company worth billions. It was a family, small and imperfect and completely worth every sacrifice. Emma stirred in her chair. "Did you say yes?" Isabella laughed through tears. "You were awake?" "Obviously. I wanted to make sure you didn't mess it up." "I said yes." Emma jumped up and threw her arms around both of them. "I knew it. I told you they'd get married." Ryan picked Emma up and spun her around. "You're too smart for your own good." "I know. It's genetic." Isabella watched them, this man and this child who'd crashed into her carefully ordered life and shattered every rule she'd lived by. Who'd taught her that being human wasn't a liability, that caring about people was the only thing worth doing. She thought about all the years she'd wasted building walls, all the time she'd spent believing her father's lies about strength and independence and the dangers of letting anyone close. She thought about how close she'd come to missing all of this, and she was grateful, deeply, impossibly grateful, that she'd fired a janitor one night and he'd looked at her with honest eyes and asked her not to let his daughter know he'd failed, because that moment had been the beginning of everything, the beginning of learning how to be human again, the beginning of understanding that the best things in life were never the ones you planned. They were the ones that found you when you finally stopped running from the possibility of being loved. Isabella Vaughn had spent 30 years ruling an empire, but standing on that rooftop with Ryan and Emma, watching butterflies rise into the Manhattan sky, she finally understood what it meant to build a home. And it was worth more than all the money in the world.